whole nother level of stupidity.
But
Nice, Bam's on mute. That's dope.
Bam's on mute.
amazing, yeah,
Yeah,
you're on mute.
you're on
For
mute,
once,
man.
I didn't fuck up, y'all. Hey. Hello, humans. Welcome to Caesar's Busy Schedule. This is episode 9 of Power Report. And god damn it, look at us. We're looking really pretty, at least for the intro. Hopefully I can at least cut this part out before all the chaos begins. But I'm hitting recording. I am even starting the backup recording right now. So that should make everything really good. And we're here with the boys. I'm really excited to get together and do this on this fine day. We have Bam.
Bam here. We made a podcast, a veteran. Yeah. I don't know what these guys are laughing about, but we've got a lot of important things to talk about today on the Power Report, and I'm very excited.
Hell yeah. So we also have, speaking of We Made It podcast, we have Sean, who really enjoys listening to We Made It podcast, right?
Yeah, that's me.
Sean also is the host
Hello,
of
humans.
Sean also is a co-host of Audio Face. And lastly, speaking of We Made It podcast, we have the more tolerable host of We Made It podcast, Caesar.
Hey, what up? Yes, I'm the one that's pressed on time, and we still started 4 minutes after the original time. Hey.
That's what you have to do with people of color. For the record, well, as far as the people who were in the Skype test, or like the Skype room, it was Bam and I first. And then you were late, and then Sean had issues. Otherwise, he would have been on time as well. So I wouldn't be the one talking. And you're the one who rescheduled last minute. So we're technically just 4 minutes over. Anyways, this has been excellent podcast fodder. Today we have interesting stuff to talk about. It is climate hell in America, honestly. It is really horrible, and I don't think a lot of media outlets are contextualizing everything that is going on at once. We're just like saying, oh, there's fires over here, there's hurricanes over here. Like, what's actually going on? We are about 6 months into a pandemic where 200,000 people have died. Almost 200,000 people have died of coronavirus. It's going to definitely be 200,000 people by the time most people are listening to this. And we are going to go in on the Nobel Peace Prize, so much so that we might get banned in a couple of countries. And yeah, what's the next thing? That'll basically be the end of what we're talking about for now. But are there any last words before we jump in?
Let's get cracking.
Let's jump.
Let's do it.
Let's waste more Caesar's time. Anyways, no. There have been, in the past couple of months, there have been a real problem with, how would I put this? Climate issues in America. Climate has come to a head in the United States in a way that we have been talking about and we've been warning about since kind of the turn of the millennium with global warming, which got politically attacked. And so you had to kind of refer to climate change, which is a little more accurate, but still referring to the same thing. And it didn't, of course, start in 2000s when noted boring loser Al Gore, shout out Current TV, ended up getting that one movie out there. There's also the one point where, like, hey, we go from Al Gore to Al Jazeera. It's a pretty clean deal. Anyways, it has nothing to do with the movie that he put out in Inconvenient Truth. Scientists have been talking about this for decades, honestly. And so now we are feeling the effects, in addition to COVID-19 and how we're being rattled by that. We're spreading. The testing is up and down and not readily available and sometimes available. It's a bit of a disaster. But I want to point to Iowa. Now, Iowa, we talked quite a lot about this time last year, because this is when the Democratic primary was happening. If this was an open race, the Republican caucus and the Democratic caucus would be happening in Iowa, and that's the first race. And so all the candidates are really putting their ground game there. But of course, once Iowa is over, there is nothing really to say about that state. Like, all the political attention nationwide kind of moves away to New Hampshire, et cetera, everywhere else. But right now, I would say I'm going to start this kind of narrative with the Iowa Midwest derecho. So I didn't even really know what a derecho was until I started reading into this. Derecho is a Spanish word that means direction. Or sorry, it means like straight, like going in a direction. And so like, go ahead. What?
Mm-mm-mm.
Sorry. What?
Bam.
Means right.
Means right.
Oh, well, Wikipedia is really stupid. And that's what I thought too. As I was saying, like, isn't it derecho? It's like, yeah, anyways. So derecho is just like this type of storm that is, I'm not sure how it happens, but it's like a straight line windstorm that can be really massive. It can go over these massive, like, amounts of space in period of time. I'm talking like hurricane force winds from a straight line from the size of like Nebraska to Ohio, just happening at once. People would get about optimistically 30 minutes of warning as to when these rains would happen. You start to be like, okay, it's like rain. It's a little bit of an thunderstorms is kind of a bit of a problem, but unfortunately, as it started to happen, this derecho started to take effect. Bam, you seem to know a little bit about this. Do you have thoughts?
Well, I spent some sizable amount of time in my life in the South, and it wasn't necessarily this area, but there's a lot of farmland, and you hear about such things. This derecho was pretty intense. I read that there's been about $4 billion. I mean, it happened like last month, but I read about $4 billion worth of damage. I'm sure it's more than that,
Jeez.
but it was saying that in Iowa, 40% of the corn and soybean crops were severely damaged. And I'm vegan, and so I consume a lot of soy. And you guys have pets, so that means that corn is important for the cat food. Um, there's a lot going on when it comes to climate change. I'm not a scientist, but man, this is getting out of hand. What's the deal?
Well, look at Australia too. Earlier this year, where like it's just a giant firestorm that nearly wiped out all the koalas. That was just the start of this year of the amount of weather that's been going on. Bam's laughing out koalas burning and shit down.
Would have wiped out the herpes too. That'd been cool. What's funny is that like, oh, for clarification, by the way, in Spanish, directo is straight and derecho is right. Just clarification for that. We never clarified it really, but yeah, it's always been kind of a discussion for a while. But I feel like when it comes to just like I guess like environmental politics and stuff like that, it seems like the biggest roadblock, especially in America, is like anything involving like pollution or like anything involving pollution because we know what pollution is tied to. Pollution is tied to like anything that's with refineries, oil, gas, like, and those are such a massive. We like consume that on such a massive scale in America that any move ever since the Al Gore PowerPoint movie he came out with, like, we're not gonna make as much headway as we possibly can because we have such a big roadblock dealing with these massive companies that sell and export and import oil on a regular basis. The United States is tied into that for many, many years, as we all know, and different presidencies have all had focal points discussing this. And if you were to, I mean, at other times we think about this. In times we always remember about there was big fires, right? And then we look back and we're like, man, remember that day it was ashy and stuff like that. I don't ever really remember a time where I went outside and it was a red sky for 4 or 5 days. It's really weird right
Still
now.
is.
Like we talk about that one day or a couple of days, it was ash everywhere. It's like, oh, it's like raining ash. It's so weird. This is like crazy, man. This is like next level. So, I wish I was more well versed on kind of like the know-how on this stuff. But I mean, like Ben said, it doesn't take a scientist to know that things are not going great outside in environment as well as and health around the world as well too.
Yeah, I mean, all of us are in Southern California, and it's been ashy. There's been like the air quality is super poor. And you've seen all the pictures; those aren't filters, although some of them are filters. But
some of them are
but
like filters on top of the orange that you have. That it's so like it's filters on filters.
I feel like some of those Oregon ones are capped, but I'm gonna let it slide.
We could definitely have an interview guest about someone who knows about the perceptions of reality, but that's a different podcast. But Bam, what were you saying?
Yeah, going back to kind of what Caesar was saying, like when we're talking about man-made climate change, which is controversial in this country, Um,
For what reason? I don't know.
there's
Money.
so much against any kind of like green. There's so much against it. So much big industries against it. In 2016, Washington tried to have a carbon tax based
Mhm.
on British Columbia's carbon tax.
Yes.
And in British Columbia, Canada, it was like popular among all the political spectrums. Like everybody was like, yeah, that's a good thing. If these big industries are polluting the air and the water, they should have to pay for that. Because
Hmm.
we all end up suffering from that. In Washington, the big business there ended up spending probably, I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars to fight against that bill, and it ended up being rejected. I think Australia too. If I'm not mistaken, I feel like I remember in Australia that was a big thing too. They wanted to levy a carbon tax, and like Rio Tinto and like these big companies fought against it super hard. Um,
Well, didn't they do something like similar to like in the EU a few years ago as well? I think
where?
in the European Union, did they do something similar?
I mean, their environmental stuff is a lot better than ours,
Well,
but
yeah.
here, just like that's so much what the economy is based on, and like
Hmm.
these big chemical companies and like all these like big polluter companies just don't want to give an inch. They're so greedy. They're so tied into um, both political parties to the extent that there's so many people that would be like, oh, I'm not going to take money from big oil. I'm not going to take money from big ag. Like that's like a big deal here. Like, oh, you got
Hmm.
principles. I'm not going to take money from these people.
So
Get your systems.
if I could really fast, I want to kind of tear into the basic kind of climate change argument. Not that it really should be an argument anymore, but let's just kind of dig into it. So I have this reporting from CBS 2 News Ohio. Rebecca Koppelman has this. So the winds for the derecho are supposed to be around 80 to 140 miles per hour, and they could be ongoing for 40 to 50 minutes. Again, over a space that is as wide as Nebraska to parts of Ohio, like Western Ohio.
Holy smokes!
Um, Typically, in a normal derecho, strong winds last about 10 to 20 minutes. So this is double the time minimum, sometimes more than that. The longest they've previously seen in a derecho was about 30 minutes, which was one that happened in Missouri in 2009. About peak wind gusts. Peak wind gusts are estimated to be about 110 to 140 miles per hour. Because these are like flash hurricanes, it's you have to kind of wait a little while to get the perfect estimates for the wind. But it's apparently among some of the strongest derechos in the U.S. There was one in Atkins, Iowa, around Benton County, that had the highest wind gust that was recorded at 126 miles per hour. The previous record was in 1998 in Washington, Iowa, 123 miles per hour. Um, the average like winds you get in this entire area would be like having one big F2 tornado, if you know anything about those. So like it's
Mm.
the point is climate change is absolutely a factor here. It's absolutely like making things worse. Usually a derecho occurs every usually 2 to 4 years, but it's not totally sure the research about these as far as how climate change is affecting these. But usually derechos, like as you know, haven't been this strong before. This is something that is starting to happen in a wider amount of space too. And big picture, this is where a lot of America gets our food, like Bam mentioned earlier. So this is a big issue that, oh wow, how come a lot of people in the media aren't talking about this? That's really interesting. But also the other stories not getting told, even in the places that are reporting about it really fast, is the political corruption that's going on, the complete failure of the people who are working on behalf of the people to actually, how do I really put this? To actually get first responders and get help for these people. Some people were without power for weeks. Some people were without cell phone service for multiple days. A lot of people are still without power and water and food and basic
Mhm.
supplies. Most of the places where people are getting that are mutual aid by those scary socialist organizations that Tucker Carlson says are flying on planes into random cities to take down statues. Like
Oh my god!
it's all very telling about what's going on in America. And like we're gonna talk about a couple more climate disasters as we go on, because there's hurricanes, and then of course there's the wildfires that we're dealing with locally right now. But yeah, this Iowa story is so fucked, right?
Guys, we gotta rake the forest, man.
Jesus Christ.
You got a what?
What Trump said last time when
Uh,
LA burned down almost.
If we're gonna talk about the wildfires right now, or do you want to talk about hurricanes?
If you have any other, let's talk enough about hurricanes. Let's go into hurricanes. Um,
Uh,
yeah. So hurricane season is so bad that usually, when a hurricane season starts, they set out a bunch of different names, usually 21 to 25 of possible hurricanes you could have. And I remember like some of the really worst storms that you would have also around the August September time would be Hurricane Andrew, Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Irina, all those different ones. They
Hurricane Irma.
yeah, they usually sometimes they're A's like we had, and sometimes they're like I and K. They usually don't get very much lower than that, but we're in what's considered to be the peak of the season for what is like hurricanes and what's happening. And we are 17 names in to this year's 21 name list.
Oh,
So
we're gonna get Hurricane Xylophone.
we have
Hurricane Xavier.
That'd be dope.
Oh, of course they named that.
Reason.
Of course
Hurricane Zeus.
the category 5 would get the black name. Of course they how they do them. But it seems like there's Sally, Teddy, Vicky, and Wilfred remaining because those are obviously the names. Afterwards, if you're wondering what's going to happen, if/when, even if it doesn't happen this year, if it happens in the future, if we have another hurricane season that is this bad, then I don't know. What are they going to do? Oh, actually, I do know what they're going to do. They're going to go to the Greek alphabet to go to Greek names. So you're actually kind of close. We are going to get Zeus.
If we get, okay, man, I'm considering it. There better be a wild name either. Not a super long one.
Hurricane Legend of Zelda.
No, I don't want to see no Hurricane Tentacoompa or whatever. I'm like, come on, man. As a multiple hurricane survivor, Hawaii. I don't want to brag much. I mean, dodged 7 hurricanes in 2 seasons in Hawaii. I would say that I was kind of thinking about the other day. I was like reading a report. They're talking about like hurricanes have been like increasing to like a some certain percentage every year. And it all kind of ties into me that like people that deny that any kind of climate change is an issue and like climate change isn't real, which is I literally like you guys said, literally, how are you on this? How? That's like denying that there's gravity, but people do that too. So apparently, my thing is like, okay, if things are pointing towards like are changing and at a not normal rate, if things are altering, if you have a car and every day you turn it on, but every day it's taking a little longer to start it up, wouldn't you think there's an issue coming? You should kind of assess that with Earth too. We usually get to around I or whatever with these initials. We're gonna start reaching the Hurricane Wilfred and Hurricane Yancey. It's gonna start getting rough. Like, where's the point? I feel like, and I used to think to myself like, oh, I think it takes like, yeah, sadly, like it takes like some kind of like mass destruction for like Americans to feel like change needs to happen. But sometimes I even feel like now that the culture is today, there's so many deniers out there that I don't even think mass destruction will even do that. I feel like people will still be like, oh, well, I don't know, and I heard it's not that bad. And
look at COVID. COVID is the same exact thing. People are like, oh, it's not that bad. Meanwhile, you have hundreds of thousands of people dead.
They're like, oh yeah, well, it's just, I mean, if you do the percentages, it's only 180,000 people. There's 300 million people in the country. I'm like, okay, but did you really want to lose those lives? Is that what it is? It's all good. I don't get it.
Like y'all boy Herman Cain died from COVID, so come on now.
Well, going back to the hurricanes, like we saw, I think it was Barbados last year, just completely destroyed. Like,
yeah, so absolutely.
I mean, I guess it would take I mean, I don't know, like what would have to happen to like reverse the trajectory of these horrible hurricanes. Like that would take a lot, I'm sure, but just to get on that track, like maybe it would take, and I don't want this to happen necessarily, but maybe it would take like a Miami to just be completely hit. Like in a way, like obviously Miami gets hurricanes every year, but like it survives and it's like whatever. But if there was like something really catastrophic happen there, like
Yeah.
maybe that would change something as far as policy. But I doubt it.
And I hate to interject, but it's like the thing to me. I'm like, okay, like it's not like hurricanes are coming out of the ground. They're not coming out of like volcanoes. You know, there's it's a mass that's producing in the sky. If we have an increased amount of pollution, which is supposed to not really be happening because we had this whole change going on. We're coming out with more hybrid vehicles, electric vehicles. These things are coming, but yet air quality is not any much better. We still have a lot of pollution issues. So that tells me there's a lot of still refineries and a lot of things that we need to fix here too. If that's increasing and you're putting that into the air, and then more hurricanes are amassing, I'm not a scientist or a meteorologist or whatever. And, I don't know what they're called, but it just seems like those things would be tied together. And if you were to make changes towards that, would it hurt? Because if you were to make change to like reduce that and all of a sudden the sky's clear and things are better, like think about it. When the first lockdown happened, I think it was in March to like April, they were talking about like Los Angeles has some of its best air quality since like 1943 or something like that. Some crazy number that air quality was so much better when people were forced to be in that lockdown at home because less cars have all these emission issues were on the road. I mean, that's something in itself, and that was just a lockdown for like 3 weeks. That's it.
Yep.
Well, your president said we could nuke the hurricane.
Never forget that.
Which one?
Probably both of them.
Both.
I got two, homie. Which one are you trying to attack
let's
first?
let's hit a little bit close to home, shall we? The Pacific wildfires. We have the ones in Oregon, which I mean, like to be real, we have a wildfire season anyways. Like that's obviously very clear.
Exactly,
We know
yeah.
about this.
That's
like,
what we do.
grass grows, sun shines, birds fly. People in Orange County drive terribly and get a lot of plastic added to their bodies. People in Los Angeles are freaking out because they can no longer get their avocado toast. They're like weed dispensary infused restaurants. But you know, fire season is just one of those things that is part of California's like life and values. Like we just like kind of understand it. And in fact, it's so kind of common and known that the original Californians, the native peoples and the native tribes that were here, often did controlled burnings to make sure that the wildfires like didn't get out of control, to make sure that like the soil underneath was fresh and clear, so that things would be able to grow and the soil would be healthy instead of like the soil being unhealthy, plants dying, and a bunch of brush just waiting for like sparks to completely spark a wildfire and get there. But nevertheless, you have these really bad conditions. Whatever you say about the big disasters, you can definitely say we have record-breaking temperatures. Los Angeles, I believe, one part of like central East Los Angeles hit like 114 or 119 this week. Like I don't know what. That's a thing. That's like these used to be Death Valley numbers, and that's like in a very urban part of Los Angeles. But you have this one in Oregon. It seems to be arson related, and that grew into a really large thing that's tearing through a lot of parts of Oregon. Northern California, I remember in college where like we had to end up canceling classes. It was a struggle because all my professors were hard asses, and so they wanted to actually have us walk through smoke that would kill us in order to take their fucking midterms. But like I remember the smoke being in the air and that being really terrible. But that is turning the sky fucking orange now. It wasn't even that bad. It was dusty before. It's not orange back then, but it's orange right now. So that's like ravaging the middle of Northern California. And then Southern California, we get a fire because of a gender reveal party. Gender is something that is completely made up arbitrarily based on whatever culture you happen to grow on in this weird little round planet we have. Round, flat, whatever you want to call it. And it turns out someone's arbitrary little party, which probably was like not even a qualified social like COVID gathering, was still able to happen and occur. And they were able to do the stupid thing. And this wildfire that has started, that has caused my asthma to react for the first time in like 4 years, is because of some goddamn gender reveal party because the pyrotechnics went off. I'm out.
Well, there's also more fires too, not just in San Bernardino. There's more around by Pasadena as well.
Yeah,
that are natural.
In that area that hit 121, shout out Woodland Hills. Went to Pierce College when I was a kid.
The Valley.
Shout out
Yep.
Woodland Hills, San Fernando. But yeah, I mean,
Grandparents are there.
yeah,
Dying slowly.
it ties in pretty crazy. And what when and kind of what I was saying earlier, it's like when does an effort towards this like or looking into what's going on happen? Do you guys think that because of like coronavirus and everything, like it's become like a tiered issue? It seems like America or what's going on in America is things that like have order of importance. You know, you have like the violence with the police officers, you have coronavirus, you have natural disasters. Do you think there are things being addressed all at once, or do you think like they're gonna focus? There different focal points? Like, what do you guys? How do you guys think that's gonna be handled?
Well, we got to fight these fires. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
dead ass we do.
And if y'all stopped eating meat, we'd have more water to fight the fires.
Yeah.
But
And that
Absolutely.
also that's the one and that's the biggest thing to climate change is meat.
also, I want to say, Dan, like the controlled fires, like a lot of times they would do controlled fires for like forests. This is a
Yep.
lot different than like brush fires. Like we're dealing with like brush fires that like just are wild. They just like spread super crazy. But like a forest fire is a little bit different. But yeah, this
I
and
thought it
also
was in the San Bernardino forest though. It's right outside
I mean, like
Irvine.
well, you get
these
a lot
fires are
of
happening in forests, they're happening in brush. Like maybe I wasn't exactly sure about like what
Yeah.
they would use it, but the point is like a certain amount of fire is healthy for the soil in order to keep it
yeah.
healthy.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
whether it's brush or whatever that
Keep it
sparks the
from
fire or
burning.
keeps the fire from burning, because we have some redwoods actually that are in central California around the Santa Cruz area, where like those
Mhm.
parks have been there for like all of California's history before people were really there. Some of those trees are gone forever because of the fires that have happened this year.
Huh.
So
That's crazy.
Caesar, to get to your question of like what is going to happen here and what like government officials are doing, Bam, did you have a point that you want to make or what?
No.
Well, didn't so one thing I thought was interesting is that did Newsom do let prisoners become firefighters or something like that, or people along that lines to help fight fires? I think that was one thing I was reading up on. I don't know exactly, but
Well,
bam.
they had the prisoners being firefighting slaves
Well,
For a
yeah.
long time,
for a long time. And I
still
guess
do.
just recently there was a bill that he signed that's gonna because they weren't able to become firefighters after they got out of prison. So he's signing something they can like since they had all this training, they can become firefighters after they get out of prison, unless they have like a
Uh,
violent crime or a sexual crime. So that's a good thing.
Mhm.
But I do think at the same time, if they're going to be fighting fires, they should be getting more than like 75 cents a day.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
They could be
Um,
compensated for it.
also, I remember when I was looking at the report, I really hated that picture he took. It was like the most annoying thing ever. He like went in the middle of the woods where it's all
Oh
being
yeah.
burnt, and, like signed the bill there. I'm like, ah, my guy, like, this doesn't even be a
Cross his
moment for
legs,
you, all right? Yeah.
cross his legs, sat at a picnic table,
You
and
might as
signed
well
a
have the
bill.
firefighters working in the background too while you're signing this bill in your comfortable clothes. Like, damn, geez, Newsom, please stop.
I mean,
Yeah, but
the thing with Gavin Newsom, if I could just go in really quickly, is that like,
If I just clip him real quick.
first of all, if I can get some pot shots in really quickly, the first thing everyone should know about Gavin Newsom is that he slept with his best friend's wife. This is a real true fact.
there's
Absolutely,
Dan's
totally know
favorite
about it.
fact of all
Um,
So
of
what?
Gavin
So
Newsom.
what?
I don't think that's a terrible thing. I just think
JFK got his dick sucked in the White House all the time,
and I
so
don't
who
think these
cares?
things are ethical, like terrible things, but like I think you should know the full aspect of a person's character. Also, if it's someone's best friend, it's a little interesting. I'm slipping into dicey territory here, so let me move on. So the thing I other would also want to mention is that while Gavin Newsom is doing this one like sort of liberal faux pas side thing of way of doing
Did
things,
he do
he's
fracking
also
too?
he's also signing legislation or like signing bills or giving out permits is what I mean to say. He's a governor, so he doesn't like sign legislation. He signs bills into law. But
Mm-hmm.
he also has the ability to issue permits, and he's been doing that for fracking outlets. So if we're talking about clean energy, if we're talking about a better environment, if we're talking about making sure we have if
Fracking
we are
is
talking
not.
about having making sure we get like the temperatures under control or at least like mitigated, so this is the like worst it gets. That's the other thing I have to tell you, Caesar, is that like the outlook is so bleak that I don't think enough people realize that we right now are living in the days we will fondly remember as far as the climate goes. Like we are going to go in 2024 at this rate because no one's doing anything, regardless of who's president. Even if there's like a massive like Green New Deal type thing that well-known Marxist Joe Biden actually gets through, a deadlocked Senate and a House that probably won't let that happen, or water it down while it gets there. In 4 years, all of this is going to be worse. The hurricanes are going to be worse. The derechos are going to be more frequent. The wildfires are going to reach further into parts of civilization that, yeah, sure, we probably shouldn't have been building on in the first place, but that doesn't disrupt from the fact that these are times where people are already facing economic struggles and they're losing their livelihoods already. But this climate crisis is, there was a point in the 2000s or whatever where we were starting to get awareness of, oh no, the temperatures would rise. That could lead to some bad things. And then in the 2010s, we were like, oh no, the temperatures are rising. Some bad things are happening. We're starting to break some records. And now we've just become numb to saying, oh no, we're breaking records every single year. Every year is worse than the last. Like, it's this kind of like Stockholm syndrome with those in power and us, with the fact that we aren't in the streets right now, like angry at the fact that they are destroying. This isn't barely even political. This is literally our planet. And I don't know what else to say about that. These are fucking monsters.
Well, sadly, it is political because there's people in high office that just do not care and actually are down. They're like, yeah, sure, like whatever. I'm not gonna die. They will, like that's how they see it. There's a lot of evil people in these positions.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I think like for most of us here who've been Long Beach for a lot of our lives, I remember the thing I used to talk about was like, I mean, everywhere else would hit 100 and like Long Beach would be 92, 93, and that'd still be really hot here. But I was just thinking that day we had that heat wave in the weekend, I was like, that's crazy. It's 103 out here. That's like insane. Like you would never really see triple digits ever, like ever. That's crazy numbers to see. And but I like agree with Bam. It's definitely a political issue. I mean, the every time you see any kind of Green Deal or any kind of discussion on the Green Deal, like it's shot down and it's destroyed. And everybody's like making fun of it on the right. But the thing that's weird to me, I'm like, okay, but what's your counter? What's your counter to it? Because if this deal that AOC everybody's is coming up is so garbage, then what are you coming up with? Because I'm kind of sick of 106 summers here. And because people doing when those heat waves happen, they don't say, hey guys, stay home, blast that AC and relax. No, they tell you stay home, and then between 3 and 8 p.m. make sure you turn your AC to 78 degrees. They tell you to stay home, then they tell you to up your degree temperature. And let me tell you something, I break that rule every time. So go come find me. So it's like there's no counter to it, and that's what's infuriating of all of it. It's like, oh, you have so much you can dig on to rip it apart, but you're not bringing nothing to the table yourself.
There's one last point I'll make. It's like what on that point of like what people can actually do. Like there are these announcements that go out there that are like, oh, remember to conserve power. Make sure you are like unplugging things and stuff like that. Make sure that you are like, and there are these valid things you do. People should do these things, and people should also undo their meat intake and like all these other things we can naturally do. But the time is over. Yeah, sure. The time is over. Like, listen, the time is over for all of these politicians to get off scot-free with fucking flex alerts. The time is over for them to say like, yo, the pitchforks and torches are coming out because before our houses burn, we're gonna have some conversations. All right, I'll leave it at that. Okay, like yeah. There's now like the action of like people on the ground to put pressure on the politicians who don't believe in climate change. Put pressure on the politicians like Nancy Pelosi, who said green dream or whatever, and like contrast that to the wildfires that are happening right now. So this is the time for people to get angry at politicians and not just get bothered with little statements and things like that. And I don't care, Bam, that you're going to say that I need to run for office. Caesar gets the last point, and then we'll go and move on.
And last point on this, it's going off of what you said. I can agree in a sense that, we're in 2024, obviously, let's say we were to start now. Let's say the Green Deal passed today. 2024, we're going to look back and be like, oh, man, like it was better then. I mean, sure. But I can also see a part where we're going to notice things and be like, oh, actually, that did get better or that did improve. Because no matter what, if you make any kind of step towards change, something happens. There's a result towards it. There's always a result. You're not going to get punished for change. So it's like I think we should look at it as if like, well, regardless, something good will come out of it. Maybe we'll still have 105 on a Sunday, but maybe when you're driving up to the 101, there won't be this massive orange cloud at 3 p.m. over LA. Like, oh, that's kind of crazy. Like I remember when there used to be an orange smog over there. So there'll be something towards it. I think it's important to focus on. We need to focus towards making these steps towards, as long as it's little, it's something. We need to make some kind of progress.
We
It's
don't
called
need
clean.
we don't
Yeah,
need Dan. We need Caesar. Dan, you're fired. We need Caesar to run.
Well,
I can
you
only
can
go so
go.
far though. Dan can go farther up than me though.
The problem too with a lot of the framing the Green New Deal, with at least for the centrist Democrats, is they never say what exactly is in it. They never say like, oh, climate change is this and that, and then they never say to go into renewables, like with the jobs and stuff. So that's a big problem within the centrist Democrats that they never talk about. So that's a big thing with Republicans and stuff in the Midwest and in the Rust Belt, that they need to have jobs. I'm like, well, you can do it if you to go into an actual bill that does into clean renewable energy instead of coal. And I think a lot of people would love to get out of coal mines because fuck that shit and do something that's a lot better for the environment and their health in general, and they could still get good money from it too.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say this word on here. So Dan, if I'm not allowed, you can just delete it or you can bleep it, edit it. But on another level, Whitey came here to this land to take everything.
Well, yeah, they did.
They came to this joint right here to get every single drop out of it. And that mentality has not changed. And I'm not talking about like everyday like people around you, like your neighbors and stuff. Like the establishment, they came here to suck it dry and to just anybody in the way, you gotta go, including all the buffalo. So
Yeah.
like that like culture of like pillage of this land, like that has to change. Like from I don't want to say top down or bottom up, but like it has to change in general.
I think that's a good point that you mentioned about Trump being the worst president ever, Caesar, and that like past little bit that we did there, because the Woodward tapes kind of came out. Bob Woodward, shout out to your man's, popping out hits since 1966, and it's basically portions of his book came out. And portions of the book are coming out, and I love that Caesar's face, your face and stuff like that. But portions of the book has come out to kind of demonstrate Trump deliberately hiding the time at which he knew about COVID, what the details were about COVID, and ultimately what some of the consequences would be from the American public in order to cover his ass. So, currently, just the whole context you should have to this is that 200,000 people died. Or like I'm saying this early right now, but I'm knowing that most people are gonna listen to this a couple of days, maybe a week or so after I post it, and so this number is going to be a fact. 200,000 people have died. More are going to die. The flu season has not even happened yet. They're going to try to hide the flu numbers with the COVID numbers, like they tried to hide the COVID numbers with the pre-existing condition numbers, and they said the Democrats were about death panels. But I think some of the horrible quotes, I think some of the worst quotes from this were that let me get these up right now. He says COVID goes through the air. By the way, this is on 7th of February. We didn't have lockdowns or anything like that until March, and of course we could have known about this as early as December or January. But there's worldwide issues that we can get into with that. There is some issues with China we can get into with that as well. Trump says,
it goes through air, Bob. That's always tougher than the touch. You know, the touch, you don't have to touch things, right? But the air, you just breathe the air. That's how it's passed. And so that's a very tricky one. That's a very delicate one. It's also more deadly than your strenuous flus.
But he said that the virus would be very much under control, and he publicly implied that the flu would be more dangerous than COVID-19. which is a vibe for sure. Again, a lot of people.
That would have been nice.
Yeah, that would have been preferable.
He even in those quotes, he was like, "Yeah, it's more deadly than the flu. It's like 5%, whereas the flu is like 1%." And like literally got in front of people and said it's not more deadlier than the flu. Like, I don't know. Has he responded about this yet or no?
Yeah, he did another round of those like softball interviews on his favorite media outlets, saying that, oh, I didn't want to worry the people. And this might even happen at like one of his press briefings, honestly. But he was basically saying that like I didn't want to worry the public. I didn't want to cause a panic. It wasn't going to be that bad. It's like he again. There's always this parallel with Trump where he is running as someone who is always under threat and he is always under siege from all these threats that are attacking him. But he's a very strong person and no one can beat him, and he is always going to be the best. He COVID was a crazy thing and it was a one-off and no one could have predicted it coming, and everything was great beforehand with the economy, with society, with racial justice, with all these different things that were coming to a head. At the same time, all of these things are an attack on Donald Trump. All these things are an attack on Donald Trump, who's keeping everything perfectly sound in society. So it's this double thing that you have to have in order to be a Republican at this point and watch this president do what he does. But the thing is that we've had moments that are equally as bad. Like there were books that came out that were like all the liberal media were like shooting rope across the like entire room when they like tell all books came out with like fire and fury. Donald Trump did this in the White House. He was calling the Russians and Mueller and all this stuff. And Donald Trump just kind of powered through it. There were multiple investigations. There were like impeachment hearings about 2 different kind of cases. And Trump just kind of powered through it because ultimately his base and what trickles down from the people in power and what trickles down from the Republican elected people in power is that we are going to give Trump a pass because he is our vessel for getting our super hyper capitalist ideology in the woodwork and ingraining it into society. I know what another one of Donald Trump's responses was to all this. Just to wrap up, one of his responses was to say that, oh, Ted Cruz might be a Supreme Court nominee, like if he gets elected to another term. He's distracting with something kind of crazy that his base will take as red meat, but like that's also should be kind of a reminder that of the importance of like sucking it up and working to get Joe Biden electing as far left people progressive you can down ballot, and yeah, just fighting and continuing to fight because this is a complete battle now for an American society for those who understand and those who don't.
Richard Nixon would be proud.
Definitely. Maybe a little jealous. The interesting thing is like, he already started snitching on himself in that Axios interview he did on HBO. Like when he was talking about how it's whatever that 100 at the time, like 150K Americans died. He kind of said it's whatever or whatever. Like he kind of brushed off 150K Americans dying. I thought that this was like Mr. America. I thought he's making America great. What is it, like sponging 150K bodies? Is that how the process is? Like he already did that. When he brought up the what was it? I think January 24th, 25th dates about like them finding out about having COVID reports from directly from China and all that. Back then, it was talked about Democratic hoax and it was fake and it's not real. Then we transitioned to going to the air. Then he wanted to start drinking Lysol bottles from opening the cap and swigging them down. And then now it became, we're testing better than any country. Now we're testing too fast and we're testing too many. That's why the numbers are going up. Like this is without a doubt anybody. Even if I was a Republican and I voted Trump in, I can't look at that and be like, well, damn, he did a great job. You can't do that, dude. That is the biggest like flop of probably one of the biggest flops because we got to see it on social media and TV over the course of 9 months in like American history. You're like watching this debacle and this flip-flopping. Normally anybody in the past would say one thing, even like Obama's campaign, one thing, another. They're dropping clips and they're ethering him about something on a counterpoint. This man has made like 10 different arguments on something he has a whole cabinet of people and a whole staff and organizations working on since January. You can't have that. That's not what a leadership role. A leader's not someone that comes and gives you wild points and deflects you with other wild points to move on from the subject. That's not what a leader does, and he's in a position of leadership. So let's stop capping about that in general.
No more idiots in charge.
That's not gonna stop. But at least damn, not that level. That's too much for me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I just think that it's something where like we talk about some presidents that just historically just oof. I mean, from Bush to everybody else, but this is next level, dude. This is next level, and
because the time frame of what's everything happened, especially COVID, it's unreal.
Yeah, and the trickle effect of Trump and president places like Brazil having the president. It's not like any other place has an example of where it's working, but here it's bad. Over there it's bad too. This showmanship type of presidency it's just garbage. It's hot garbage. Bam, you good?
Am I here? Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to say that Donald Trump is a result of decades of unchecked white privilege. He knows that he can get on the TV or whatever and say whatever the hell he wants. He knows he can do that because what also came out in those Bob Woodward tapes when they were talking about racism, there's like one part where Trump saying like, yeah, I think there is a thing like systematic racism or whatever. But there's another part when Bob Woodward is asking like, well, do you feel like a responsibility to like understand? He's like, no.
We're white, privileged, my father was a lawyer and a judge in Illinois, and we know what your dad did. And do you have any sense that privilege has isolated and put you in a cave to a certain extent? Is it put me, and I think lots of white privileged people, in a cave, and that we have to work our way out of it to understand the anger and the pain particularly black people feel in this country?
No, you really drank the Kool-Aid, didn't you? Listen to you. Wow. No, I don't feel that at all.
Like he's like telling like Bob Woodward's like talking about it like we're like white privileged men, blah blah blah, and Trump is like, wow, you really drank the Kool-Aid, didn't you? He's like, you don't feel a responsibility? He's like, no. Like Donald Trump knows that his position, he can do and say whatever he wants, and also he's aware that he's coming on the heels of a black president. He's aware of that. Who he questioned his citizenship for the years. Like for us, sensible, not mental slaves, we can like listen to what he's saying and be like, this is ridiculous. But if you're like a mental slave or you're racist and just don't care, you're just gonna be like, that's not important. Or whatever he says, like, yeah, whatever daddy told me, that's what we're doing.
Daddy Warbucks.
And going back to something Dan said, like, yeah, there is this, like the right-wing ideology is based on pretending to be the strong man while playing the victim. And that's like, that's not just like an ideology. That's how somebody, like their personality can be. Like just craving power and just, so narcissistic and insecure, like you can just never be wrong. So for him, it's like, yeah, they're all against me, but like I'm the strongest person in the room. Oh, when something doesn't go right, it's their fault. When something goes right, it's because of me. Or it's just immature baby.
It's not fake news.
Yeah, it's immature baby bullshit. And like, if somebody can't see through that, like you're a slave, or you're just like we don't need to be including you in these conversations.
Sean, last word.
There are no words because at this point it's unbelievable that he has so many sycophantic followers and stuff, and that these people are completely blinded by their trust of him and stuff. I don't even know what it is at this point. Basically, it's bad. That's it. I don't want to go on an hour-long tangent of it.
And now to Power Report's favorite segment, World Peace. So today we found out that the King of Israel, two-time Nobel nominee, moist, wet, tight, ready-to-fight millionaire, Donald J. Trump, has been nominated for not one, not two, actually yes two, maybe more. We don't know how that'll happen because this is a dumbass society. But 2 Nobel Prizes. So what the hell? What is this about? Basically, members of the Swedish Parliament, I think, have the ability to just like nominate people for the Nobel Prize, and so the far right in that parliament has been kind of going ham with these different things. The first thing was a nomination from member of the Norwegian Parliament. There's a number of different countries. So the Norwegian Parliament member Christian Tybring-Gjedde nominated Donald Trump for the Nobel Prize for his role in brokering relations between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. This was trotted out as a peace deal between Israel and Palestine because like right-wing marketing is one of the most incredible forces in American capitalism, like is like relentless, truly. But this is totally a PR stunt. If anything, this is just going to strengthen military and economic relations for the most powerful in both countries, the United Arab Emirates and Israel. So again, good for the war machine. But again, that would be really crazy enough if Donald Trump got nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. And for the record, I think it's ridiculous that Obama got nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize, but more on that later. Donald Trump got nominated for a second one because of that member of Swedish Parliament, like I mentioned earlier, for brokering the deal between the government of Kosovo and Serbia. Again, it's for peace and economic development, as it's always called. What's going to be is more of the relentless extraction between smaller countries that are looking for more money on the world stage, and mostly those oligarchs who want to maintain most of that money from the world stage and take that money from the workers, the regular people who have everyday lives that are more relatable to you and me and those who are on the show and those who are listening to this podcast, taking their work and profiting off of that while they suffer, and sharing that with America and continuing the game and keeping that going. That to these Christian, not Christian necessarily, but most likely, that to these conservative far right wing leaders all across the world is a show of like international solidarity in the far right, that they are ready to buckle over people of color and people that are workers for profit and give fucking awards for it.
I got a lot to say about these two issues. I got a lot. I'll start with the UAE situation with Israel. I remember when it dropped, I'm like, this is silly. Like the UAE and Israel are they've never had a war. Like they don't border each other. There's no like ill will other than I'm sure just like rhetoric on the street. But also they're basically allies against Iran. I'm sure that they've done business behind closed doors to some degree, but this is like basically saying like, okay, we can kind of do it more in open and like share technology, military equipment, whatever. But I'm sure that they're still not going to do much business like in open for real, for real. Like I doubt Netanyahu's going to go to Dubai. Like I doubt that. But he did go to Chad not that long ago. But as far as like this having any like doing anything to help the situation for Palestinians, absolutely not. There was bombings before, during, and after this was signed, and like the UAE could give a shit about what's going on with Palestinians. Like they could care less. They got full certified 100% slaves right there in the UAE. Like it's like 1,000% slavery. Is not even just the camels. It's like people. But the Kosovo and Serbia deal, that one literally had me dying. I don't know if you guys saw the video of the Serbia president, prime minister, whatever, when he's sitting at that little desk and Trump is saying, yeah, you know, Serbia agreed to move their embassy to Jerusalem. And the dude literally is like,
This is like,
what?
This month. To move its embassy to Jerusalem in July. That's fantastic. That's a big thing. That's a very big statement, and we appreciate that very much. It's taken tremendous bravery by the president of Serbia and the president of Kosovo, who are with me today, two highly respected people.
and like starts looking at some paper. It was
The mad scramble of paper was the best part. It was
like that was the best thing ever, dude. Like I love that. So I've like rewatched it so many times. This dude was like, "Wait, what?" Like,
Someone got like an instant notification of, whoa, like, oh man. It's almost like one of those moments where someone springs something up on you as though it's always existed. It's literally one of those moments.
yeah. And like I don't think Serbia is like a big ally with Russia, and like Russia is not like antagonistic to Israel, but it's always like plays this little bit of a game. Like they play a little bit of a game with Israel. Like they're not like all the way in there, but like it's funny. But between Kosovo and Serbia itself, Kosovo is like barely a real country. It's a creation of America in the 90s. But there were other things that had to do with this peace deal that were very interesting. So-called peace deal, I'll say that. One of the sticking points was both nations have to recognize Hezbollah in its entirety as a terrorist group. And something for the conservatives here, something for you evangelicals. Very interesting. Both countries have to be dedicated to helping to decriminalize homosexuality in the 69 countries where it's still illegal.
Ooh.
Yes. So Kosovo and Serbia have to pledge to help the decriminalization of homosexuality in the 69 countries where it remains illegal.
That's did he scramble for that too on a paper? He's like,
no,
what?
they didn't. Trump didn't mention that part, but that's in the wording.
Holy
That's
shit!
crazy. They're not gonna live up to that joint.
Well, I don't think so, but it's just interesting that that's in there.
But it matches
they
up,
signed it.
It matches up with like what American history has done in going into countries in Africa, where like they bring an evangelical front to it. It's like, oh hey, we will give you all this like aid and help with some stipulations that you also allow our missionaries to go in and make sure that there are all these really evangelical people of note who can make some like political hay in society, only to have them say, watch out for the gay people, because if you even touch one or talk to one, you have to understand that they eat the poo-poo, and so you will never be able to even speak to them again. Like they all these people are tied to the United States. It's tied to this like hyper conservative agenda.
But what this is saying that Kosovo and Serbia have to help the decriminalization of homosexuality.
Oh, that's what I thought I heard, but like that's really interesting.
Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
Which is but they didn't say that at all. The Nobel part, which is
so that's why I said for the conservatives and the evangelicals who think that Trump is God or whatever. This is saying Kosovo and Serbia. Look it up right now. Like you can go.
I mean, like I'm understanding now, but like that's definitely going to piss off the conservatives on the other side, because you know, like that's a very interesting point. Well, but I really want to get to, if we can, Bam, if we have any information about the people who like nominated Donald Trump for this positions, because like what the hell is going on?
I like when you said that, I'm like, okay, like I'm thinking like these guys are like noteworthy. Like when I was like trying to look them up, nothing comes up about these people. And then I'm like, yeah, like it's Norway and Sweden parliamentarians. Like they're not important. Like, so I don't know what they're nominating him, how much it matters. I don't know. But it's the Kosovo Serbia thing was interesting. Yeah. Now, granted, Kosovo and Serbia have had issues in the past. Kosovo being a creation of the United States, basically like, I mean, I think they just do sex trafficking out of Kosovo and just like drug trafficking, I'm sure. But when I was looking at the details, I'm like, this is just funny, man. Like, what's the deal here? Is anybody going to bring this up in these churches or something? Why is Trump or Pompeo, I guess it's the State Department that does these things. Why are they saying that Kosovo and Serbia have to make sure that they make homosexuality legal around the world? Why is this guy doing that?
Yeah, I would think that. Why is that even something that you would consider being like important in your plea deal, in your peace deal? Like, yeah, we need to share information when you share information, everything. See, I told you I gotta go. See, no, you see, like it's so yeah, like we gotta make sure there's peace deals and everything. But yeah, make sure we gotta let the gay people just prosper too. That like before we really start, you can build an embassy in Jerusalem, we can do all that, but we gotta make sure these gay people can kind of live it up. Like what? Like wait a minute.
Well, and obviously, I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
No,
Obviously,
no,
but
no,
it's
no,
just
no, no, no. Of course not. No,
It's the
but
irony.
no,
It's
no. I'm not
ironic.
saying like
No.
they shouldn't be included in the deal. That's dope. That's so dope. But I thought the same people that are on his side don't feel like that. So it's weird. Like this and like I said, on his own team, is there anybody that's ever on his side of the world on those right wing of conservatives, evangelicals? Does anybody ever put some heat on him ever? Be like, hey man, that was great we did, but yo, I thought we was boys. Why'd you do this for? No one does that. He just gets to do whatever. So you are mindless slaves. Okay, all right, cool. At least you acknowledged it. That's cool. Also,
yeah.
never heard of Kosovo in my life. But go ahead.
There's some players that that play for Kosovo, but they're basically Albanian, but it's like
Hmm.
it's a Muslim majority country in like on this. I think it's like South Albania.
Oh, I have heard of Kosovo. Okay, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah, so people read the fine print. Read the fine print.
Absolutely.
Kosovo's 1 year older than me. But go ahead.
That's hilarious.
They're all kind of fresh in these streets. But go ahead.
Was that horn really for you, Caesar?
No, no,
No.
Holy
no.
shit.
If Caesar had somebody honking a horn at him, I'm like, damn, you fell off, dog.
Yeah, I might have to get that. Never mind, out the garage if that's the case.
And you dig.
No one better ever honk for me ever in my life. Like that's not going down. Not as long as we have cell phone service.
You were texting.
Definitely not.
Yeah, 1994 you could do that. Don't do that in 2020.
Right? That's just like you're asking for a whole different kind of vibe there.
Yeah, no, that's not good.
No, but is there anything else with that? Because I think I have some last points on the idea of like Nobel Prizes more broadly, but you
Yeah,
ready to
go
go?
ahead.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay. Is it finally time where we can admit the Nobel Prize is a fucking joke? Like the whole idea of Nobel Prizes in peace, the Nobel Prize in economics, to shoot in my lane, Nobel Prizes and all these other different things. Like I am all for rewarding and kind of putting on a pedestal really amazing work in science and economics and all these different fields that we have, and like giving those people some praise. They don't need it. It shouldn't be the most paramount thing, and they don't need to ask for it, and they shouldn't be like trying to seek it out. But it's a totally acceptable thing, I believe, to have in existence, sure. But clearly, this is just like a political posturing thing. Even when Obama got the Peace Prize, like, do you even remember what he got the Peace Prize for?
It was like Afghanistan. It was like something about Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was supposedly for his.
And they like.
Oh, sorry, I was gonna say, supposedly for his quote extraordinary efforts to strengthen international diplomacy and cooperation between people. Heck of a job. I mean, like, I'm not saying like
He
Donald
droned
Trump
the
did-
dog shit out of country. He droned weddings. Like, come on now.
I'm not saying like Donald Trump has like treated the rental car nicely in the past 4 years, but like it was a beater when he got it. Like there were problems when he got it. Like things were in a number of ways a little bit better as far as the overall health of the society. But to give you didn't even need all that stuff in 2016. This was awarded to him in 2009. He was president for 1 year. He didn't even bend over for healthcare yet. Like, how did he already get the Nobel Peace Prize? Like, I don't understand. That was when some of the crack in the facade kind of came to me as far as Nobel Peace Prizes go at the tender age of 12 was that for me? So, like, I've been cynical about Nobel Peace Prizes ever since I was 6 at minimum. But especially now we're seeing them used as purely political tools. Donald Trump has not promoted peace anywhere. He's brought us to the brink of war in his presidency at least 6 times. Like, I don't. It's obviously just a facade. It's all mirage that is going to be really. I mean, I guess it's a useful talking point for an ad or anything like that, or something that he can pivot to when he's faced with the upcoming evictions that are about to happen, or the climate issues, or anything else that's an actual problem in American society. Maybe he could use that to pivot. Sure, God bless him. But I think the Nobel Peace Prizes and the Nobel Prizes more broadly are ridiculous. And most awards are ridiculous. There's a place for them, but we should definitely treat all of them with healthy skepticism. That's why I think on our respective podcasts, Audio Face and We Made It, we do our own award shows in a really good way. Maybe we got to do cross episode dual award show for something. I don't know. That just sounds like more work for me. That sounds like more to put in Caesar's schedule, and I'm not sure if he's liking that face. But
Bam's face doesn't want
not at this
talk
rate
to you anymore, Dan.
Nobel Peace Prizes are trash unless I get one.
Yeah. I'm only gonna trash one I'm gonna keep trashing them until I see one in my mail. But also, like, I like you. I agree with you, Dan. Like, if it's scientists or research being awarded for something that they did that innovates or changes or helps something in society or people, fine. You want to give them an award. But it already started getting whack when their aim was to get the award. When they were doing things with the purpose of trying to receive the award, that's whack. Like, these are supposed to be like the research they're doing is not supposed to be because they're going to receive an award for it. It's supposed to just be based upon the grant money that was funded for it, and then of course helping people out. So
yeah, you're just doing
that's already like
you're just
but
you're doing the damn thing. Like, you're just going ahead.
Whack.
Sorry, I was just going there. I love Skype.
I think Obama could have gotten a Nobel Peace Prize for the Iran deal.
Yep.
Like, I thought that was actually something substantial, which you very rarely see something substantial on that level.
I don't think we should be giving out police prize for political reasons. To be honest with you, like, I'm not saying like what he did is not good. Just let's move away from that in general, because that politics already is so messy as it is. To be handing out awards on stuff, it's not like it's incentivizing other politicians to make good moves in the world too. They're not like, I'm going to make sure and get this deal done, or I'm going to make sure that Argentina and the whole Balkan Island things, I'm going to make sure to work that out well because I really want to get this Nobel Peace Prize. That's not what they're doing. So if that's not even what the intent is for, then like it's worthless in general. So let's just move away from it being something that Parliament can assign to people and then assign to other politicians. Like, get that out of here, like, right now.
Yeah. I mean, Toni Morrison got a Nobel Prize for Literature. R.I.P. the legend. So that's all I got.
Did Gandhi ever get one?
Maybe.
Maybe. And that's rough. Trump got two nominations. He should have stepped his game up. Trump got 2 nominations. Gandhi got a maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he got the Nobel Peace Prize. Bam has been really fueled by gummies. Speaking of fueled by, we're coming to the end
gummies, by the way.
What?
Those are edibles, by the way.
You know they aren't edibles because of how he treats taking edible gummies like acid.
Yeah, like he's taking a Molly. Why is his tongue out and his eyes rolled back? Damn, slow down now. He like 5 right there. Goddamn.
No, he's just trying to flex now at this point. No, we've got
an hour later. He's just seen the devil.
That would be a great thing. Maybe once we all have Bill Gates' vaccines, we can all get together and do a Joe Rogan style podcast where we just like all do whatever edibles or whatever substances we're allowed to do by FAA regulations and just see what happens.
Yeah. We'll do Big Brother style. Put 14 cameras in here, and we'll just see what happens.
Absolutely, we'll Twitch stream it.
Patreon only, though.
Patreon only. That's a great time to bring.
OnlyFans, stop.
Do y'all have anything to promote or talk about as we kind of wrap up this part of it?
I do. Free Discussion Society's coming back. Why don't you go ahead and tell everybody Free Discussion coming back? Make that announcement, sir. After you have finished those edibles.
FDS Free Discussion Society is coming back on the 17th, Thursday, 7 p.m. Go ahead and if you follow on Instagram, Free Discussion Society, I'll be sending out that link. Or email me, Free Discussion Society or something. I don't understand our email.
DM him.
But but yeah, you know what I mean? We'll hopefully we'll get Dan in there. I'll just have him muted the whole time and say it was an accident.
Oh, you wanted me to record this episode?
Yo, if this one doesn't work, yo, I swear to God, I'm done forever. I swear.
Me too.
No, I have every reason to believe that my voice was recorded most of the time, so we should be great with that.
He said my voice for legal purposes.
Nothing has to be legal if there's no record of it. No, I'm kidding. No. Free Discussion Society is, so that's 7 p.m. Pacific. That's 10 p.m. Eastern if you're in another part of the America. And Free Discussion Society is a really interesting forum where BAM in some interesting way that's virtual because we no longer have board pieces, but we'll organize out everyone to have an equal spot and space of time, usually to talk and give their opinions about a topic. It's structured in a way that is very safe, where people can express opinions that might be a little rough around the edges, but we all kind of come into the space knowing that we want to grow and learn as a larger group. So when these were in-person events in the before times, they were actually really things I like to enjoy doing on my weekends because I am a weirdo. But we actually got a lot of different variety of people to come out. So it'll be interesting. This is the first one that's virtual. I think it'll be a really cool thing to grow and see from there. So make sure you're following at Free Discussion Society on Instagram so that you get that. That is September 17th.
Yes, freediscussionsociety.com. The topic
what's the topic?
The topic is let's talk about 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And also this is a link, so people international, if you want to come in too, go ahead. I might shoot this out to my cousin in England real quick, see if we can get some people up in here. Let's go.
They don't have internet.
Hey man, we don't have air. We don't have a sunlight. It's been sunset for 4 days in a row. It's like Mars.
My semi-boomer dad always talks about how like when he was a kid, they didn't really bottle water. Like the idea of buying bottled water was just like a ridiculous factor or aspect. So I'm pretty sure like by 2025 or 2030, Elon Musk will have like a subsector of one of his weird companies that sells you like capsules of fresh air that you can like put in your house or like carry on you just to breathe in. That'll be marked up at like $25 a canister. Like watch.
Oh yeah, he's already hyped up about putting microchips in this, so it's all good. And shout out to Oregon looking like Total Recall. I'm done.
Well, they used to have air tax in China in some restaurants or different places because the air is like so polluted. Like there was like a tax for like breathing their air inside.
And damn, that's the biggest flex of all time. Like you're breathing my air, like I own this airspace. All right, damn.
You're leaving my airspace.
We gonna shut this off or what?
How's Flight Simulator?
Yeah. Dan's just torturing me, but go ahead.
No, it's really nice. No, the Free Discussion Society, y'all have We Made It podcast as well. Make sure to talk about that.
No,
longest outro.
We made it podcast now as a Twitter. We made it podcast on Twitter. Check us out on Twitter. We're back on Twitter. The comeback is here. Trying to get the 25. Trying to get the 25 followers by September 30th, please.
They are restarting their Twitter, so go and give them some love at what is the handle? Did you get the real handle back? We Made It Podcast?
We Made It Podcast.
Well, lucky y'all. Sean and I can be found on Audio Face Pod, and we'll be reviewing music until our heads explode. Thank you very much for listening to this portion of Power Report that I did record that does exist. Peace.
Bye-bye.